Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Wraith, and today I'm going to be going over some tips and tricks on how to use archers in Middle-earth strategy battle game. Now there's quite a few tactics you can implement whilst playing the game, with archers in particular, and I'm just going to quickly go over them and explain what each one is designed to do. Basically it's how I use them. So, without further ado, we're going to jump straight into it, and initially, it's all about the setup. And by that, I mean, how are you going to deploy them? And what formation are they going to be in? So, if you've got a warband, or a warband with a group of archers in it, most people that I've come across, especially newer players, not all people, a lot of people know this trick, but I thought I'd cover it, will set up like this. Okay, so one behind the other, and yeah, it works. It's I can shoot over my buddy's shoulder, 2 shots, happy days. Okay, you take up less room but can still fire out a good volume of arrows. However, what if I told you there was a better way? Well, there is, and it is like this. So basically, as you can see in this image that I have made lovingly, it took me a whole 30 seconds to create. I know, nothing but the best on this channel. You've got more of an arc of fire for all of your guys, because if someone comes at you from the slightly to the right or something, that'll cut off a lot of your archers, because then they'll have to fire through models that they aren't in base contact with. However, if you deploy like this, and each archer in the rear rank is in base contact with 2 from the front rank, you can fire at a much wider arc. So, you've got more area to cover. Your line of fire is much wider. Try it, and trust me, it really does work. Okay, I use it a lot with my Haradrim, because they love their bows, and it's really good. It's really solid. Anyway, that was the first little tip I thought I'd chuck in there, just in case you didn't know. And this is all about upping your game in Middle-earth strategy battle game after all, so if you didn't know that, you're welcome. Next little tip I've got for you is overlapping fields of fire. So, by that, I mean, if you've got more than one warband with archers in it, you might have 2 warbands with archers, like pure archers or whatever, I don't know. You don't want to really deploy them all in the same area. The only exception for that is if you want to have some kind of area denial. So if you set up a whole gun line on the right flank, because there's, I don't know, a solid, 2 objectives you can cover with that, then do it, because it'll make enemies hesitate to get into their range, because that'll be a lot of shots coming at them. If it's more just straight up kill each other or anything like that, you don't need to worry about denying areas, then overlapping fields of fire is fantastic. Basically what you do is, when you set up your warband, you want to measure the arc of your archers from both warbands or multiple warbands, and the range they have, so usually 24 inches if it's a normal bow. Then, you want to make sure that each warband can touch the other warband's arc of fire. Do you get what I'm saying? Because that means, if you've got crossing arcs of fire, you can support with shots from both flanks, and you've got most of the map covered with archers. It'll be very rare that you do not have a shot to fire. That's the only reason I mention overlapping fields of fire, because that's what I try and do. If I don't know where I want my archers, I kind of put them evenly about, and I want them to have overlapping fields of fire. So I've got a warband to the right flank, warband to the left flank, but they're not too far away from each other that their fields of fire, their range, can cross over. There we go. Anyway, moving on to the next point. And this is quite a simple one. If you can, stick your archers behind walls. Because if you watch my previous videos on how to win with elite factions or elite armies, you know how great it is defending a wall. Not only will your squishy archers, because most archers are genuinely quite squishy, they don't have shields or anything, have a 5-up, well, I'm assuming you're behind a brick wall, have a 5-up in the way for returning fire. Also, when they get caught into combat, which is bad, but it's not the end of the world if they're defending a wall, they have a much higher chance of defending. Because you don't always have to win the fight, because not only when they win the fight against your archer, then they have to still pass an in the way test. So on a 5 or a 6, they get past the wall to strike your archer. So first of all, they win the duel, Fantastic, they're very happy. Then they have to roll a dice, 1d6 per attack, And if they roll a 1 to a 4, they hit the wall rather than your archer. You can see how this could be quite give you quite an advantage. Well, even better yet, if you've got 3 blokes on your 1 archer, he doesn't get to pile in with all 3 of his guys and beat the crap out of your archer. No. You get to fight them each one-on-one, so the attacker gets to choose, so it'd be your enemy, which order he wants to do it. But if you've got 3 orcs on your 1 Haradrim archer, for example, you'll do a duel each time. So you do 3 separate duel rolls for each orc. And that gives you a much better chance of not dying. Because not only do you have an in the way protecting you, but you also stop the amount of dice he throws at you all at once. So you've got a much higher chance of rolling a 6 and outfighting them, I think. Especially if you've got an elf archer. That's insane, because you've got the fight value. All you have to do is roll higher than them. Even if they chuck 3 orcs at you, you can still win. Nuts. So, moving on. What kind of targets are we looking at to shoot with our archers? Well, obviously, if you're at the start of the battle and you're in range of most of his army, free reign, do whatever you want. Okay? I mean, you can prioritise banners and things like that, and squishy warriors that have high fight value, or whatever you want. Okay? You can even shoot down a troll if you get lucky enough, with volume of fire and stuff like that. But what happens when they get close? Well, you might think your archers might be quite useless, but they're not. If you find a good position, and again, if you've got lots of different fields of fire, so arcs of fire, you should be able to get some line of sight on some spear supports. So say the enemy's charged into your front rank, your main core, and you've got some archers on your flanks. You can still shoot at their spear supports. So instead of giving them an extra attack, you have a chance of killing that one guy with a spear, reducing the amount of dice he rolls in the duel roll and the wound roll if he wins by 1. It's absolutely fantastic. So always try and shoot off their spear supports. If you've got high ground, it's a lot easier because you can fire over a lot of combats depending on how high the ground is. But yeah, aim for the spear supports, because your archers still aren't useless. And then if it gets down to it, you can check your archers into combat, because archers are still basically just like normal dudes. They just don't have shields or two-handed weapons or anything. That's it on that. And I've got one last little point. And this doesn't apply to all armies. This applies to a few. I believe Rivendell and Serpent Horde especially. What you can do is be really, really cheeky. And this can be seen as quite expensive. But I've seen people do it, and I've tried it once or twice. And it's quite fun, and it does work. What you want to do is give your archers, so that you give them a bow. So you've got a Haradrim warrior. He's got a bow. And you give him a spear as well. And what that means is you can have your front line of whatever you want. Half trolls, if you're going Farharad and Serpent Horde. Whatever. Merchant Guard. You choose, it doesn't matter. You still can contribute that one attack in combat when you finally get to combat. But before the engagement happens, as your armies are moving closer to each other, you can be firing volleys into their front rank, which weakens it. It's amazing when you only need 5s to wound, and if you're using Haradrim, for example, that you've got the bow with the poison ability, and if you bring the betray, you're re-rolling, and you only need 5s to wound some things, it can be horrible. On the flip side, if you bring elves, you can still move 3 inches forward. That's the only downside to this strategy. You need to be quite defensive with it, but you can still move 3 inches forward, and you're hitting on 4 pluses, which is still not bad. So yeah, not bad at all. Just do note, if you fire off your bows, you can't contribute to combat later on. So if you get shot, I mean, not that you're going to shoot straight into combat, but just in case you shoot off some bows, you can't fire in the same turn, because then otherwise it'll be broken. But that's the only downside. It'll be slow, but you will be firing shots every turn until you get into combat, in which case you'll be fighting as the enemy approaches you. And it can be horrible for slightly squishier things, like shooting at orcs. Oh my goodness. You're going to have a field day, especially if you're using elves with strength 3 elven bows. Yeah, it's going to be horrible. Anyway, that's it. That's some quick tips and tactics on how to use archers in Middle-earth strategy battle game. If I've missed anything, or you think that is worth mentioning, do pop it down in the comment section down below. I always read them, and I always try and reply when I can. Plus, I want to know what you think. Anyway, I thank you ever so much for watching this video, and I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.